Welcome back to Q&A with S&A. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Shane.
And Shane won't talk much during this session, Richard, I'm telling you. But today we're joined by one of our wonderful team members, new to Aintree Group, which is pretty impressive that you've come into the podcast studio after probably less than 6 months with us. Richard Lyons, thank you for joining us this morning, Richard.
Thanks for having me.
Really quick jump into the podcasting with us, which is awesome. And we will have you on Plan, Grow, Reap a bit more because, you know, anyone who's keen to do a podcast is always welcomed by our team. But what made you want to come and do the podcast with us, Richard?
Did you have much choice or was you just told?
I volunteered.
You volunteered.
Okay.
I very much am a fan of the culture here and the way we do things, and knew very early that we have something special here, and so I've very much been trying to jump in with with hands and feet. When I heard we're looking for people, I thought, why not?
I love it. Hopefully it'll motivate some more of the team to come on because it's really fun and it's fun for the team actually because we've done a few episodes with our senior people, so Nadia, Trong, Joseph, one recently with Katie, which hasn't been released yet but will be. You learn so much about your colleagues when you do this sort of thing because we ask the sort of stuff that people are not necessarily asking in the lunchroom. We learnt that Joseph used to play professional tennis when he was younger. So there are things that come out of this that people are like, oh, I didn't know that about Richard. Probably not so much for Richard because you're a bit of an open book for the team too.
I try.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. As I said, Richard has only recently started with Aintree Group, so we're still getting to know each other. But you came to us, you're reasonably mature aged for the position that you hold, like you're still in sort of a accountant role. So at your age, most accountants would have started uni at like 18, I guess, or 19, and then they move through their degree and get their CA and what. That's not how life worked for you, is it?
It's not. Yeah. So, I mean, to be fair, I did start uni at 19.
Yeah.
I'm in January, baby, so I was always a little old for the year level I was in. But I started at Monash. I wanted to be a biology teacher.
Okay.
Because I had a Mr. Higgins, this amazing biology teacher who made biology very interesting.
Yeah.
And I really loved when I went to university, the teaching side of things, because I love imparting knowledge and, fostering understanding. This is all wonderful. But the biology becomes chemistry very fast.
Yes.
They're like, okay, so here is how the cells work and here's all of the elements. And I'm like, oh no. The thing that I liked became the thing that I didn't like.
Yeah.
So then I transitioned to computing, and it was a 90s computer course. So it was our early 2000s computer course. It was very basic. It was like C++. I think we're up to ++, and no one's even using that anymore. So then, and I took a break and thought I'll go into the world, make some money. Made coffee for 13 years. At some point, probably in my 8th year of doing that, my friend went, "Do you want to be a barista when you're 30?" And I went, "No, I'll go back to uni. I'll do a 3-year degree. By the time I'm 30, I'll be out." And then the commerce degree I started, the university said, "Hey, we're starting a law course in 2013. What if you applied for that?" And so I like a challenge. Commerce in university, generally speaking, not a particularly hard degree. And so I applied, I pestered, I was banging the door and, hey, how you doing, law faculty, what's happening? Just constantly harassing them, basically. They were very nice about it, but I was probably being a pest. And so I ended up in the class of this inaugural 2013 class of the law faculty there. And because I'd done most of my accounting degree, I was on sort of a pseudo part-time schedule. And by 2017, I was pretty burnt out on university because I've been there since 2010. So I took a break and went back. I got a job at iSelect making coffee, and then in their facilities management and in their mortgage and life team. And they had a person there that liked me, and so it was just would put me into play. We need somebody to do this for 6 months. Oh, Richard will do that.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful for getting a lot of experience in, and meeting a lot of people and trying a lot of things. But ultimately, I'd put my study on hold. And then in 2020, in February of 2020, foreshadowing,
date, yes.
I went. My facilities manager was like, "You've got to go back and finish a degree." And I looked into it. I hadn't actually internalized how little I had left to do. I needed 2 units.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, well, I'll go back to uni. I'll go to casual in my facilities job, and then and I was like, because I'm gonna have to go into uni. I'm gonna have to be there. The ACU doesn't allow online. There's nothing's online. You have to be in there the whole time. So I was like, okay, well, I'll work 3 days a week, and I'll go to uni on the 2 days. I packed my time into those 2 days, and then COVID happened. And everything went online. Then when everything's being done online, and I was like, okay, I could have done this. I could have remained full time. So I became a part-time casual employee right before JobKeeper happened. So I became a job seeker as basically the office closed and opened and closed and opened and closed during that period. But it allowed me to do my my PLT, my practical legal training, along with graduating my degree. I got a graduation ceremony, which I was really happy about. We weren't at all sure. Everyone was like, maybe. So that was cute. And Dad and Mum came and sat in the front, and they were very happy. So I started. So by the time I started accounting, it was 2021, I think.
I know, it's a bit of a blur. That time is a bit of a blur.
But I started in March, and I worked at a place around here, and then wanted to progress to law. Ultimately, that my goal is eventually to, in some capacity, as Bob Dylan says, serve somebody, but in a slightly different capacity than in my accounting capacity. So I spoke to a young man, who helped me meet you lovely people. And, there's that you guys have the accounting and the law. So there's the capacity to come in and, bring value initially, and then in time, hopefully move over. But I really enjoy, we do masterclasses, like tax masterclasses. And yesterday, in fact, we had an accountants discussion group. And something I'm really enjoying is that idea of how do we help clients, not just in here's how to do your accounting and here's how to do your law, but like what are the practical steps? Like what are the little things you can do to save money? Saving money is the ability for somebody to go on that extra holiday or send their kids to a nicer school or whatever it is, whatever they desire. Like bringing that actual value to people is something that's really important to me. So that's my spiel.
So you were at uni for about
oh my goodness,
7,
a long time. Just let's
maybe
say
9 years. 9 years.
2004.
Oh my gosh, so it's even 2010
to 2017. For that period, and then in 2020 again for a year.
About 9 years.
10 years. And then you jumped basically straight into the CA program as well, which was another 2 years of postgraduate training.
So it's 3 years of mentor accounting with about 2 years worth of subjects within there. I like learning.
I was going to say you're a glutton for punishment, really. Speaking of the masterclass yesterday, and I don't often attend the tax and accounting discussion groups and things like that because that's not my bag. It's a bit like chemistry and biology with you, Richard. But I think that you can really see in those masterclasses that Richard is a fan of teaching and learning. I think that's so. I can definitely see some horizon of masterclass facilitation for you, Richard. So you may yet get to be a teacher, just not a biology teacher. Sorry. We can get some.
You can teach them biology if you want to. I'm not sure how relevant it'll be, but you never know.
I worry I'm just loud. Because this is I am a introvert. Like I've explained this to people. Like I'm an introvert. I like my alone time. But I worked in hospitality for 14 years. So you build a mask, and it just becomes your personality over time. I think. But
there's memes about that though. There's memes about the fact that people are introverted, but they can do what they have to when they have to. So.
Absolutely.
But on that though, it's more. I don't think that's the part of it. I think it's more just you're so curious and always the mind is always thinking about different things, and therefore asking questions and learning is more of it than that you put this mask on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I refer to it as a mask because it feels like at one point in my life it was completely alien to me to go into a room and talk to people and be on a podcast. But I mean, but absolutely, the inquisitive thing is, I had a colleague in my previous job, and I would always be like, but why? They'd be like, here's what you do. And I'd be like, okay, sure. But what's the rationale? What's the reasoning? And they were like, oh, this is what we do. And I'm like, how do you come to a position where you know what change you need if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing in the moment? So that I think that's a thing that we foster here a lot is like, if we have a better system that's not working or there's a better system, moreover, move towards it and embrace it. Yeah. I think that's great.
Yeah. You've chosen, so that is who you are, Richard, the inquisitive, the why, all of that. You've been found out. We know that now. We probably knew it when you came in for your very first interview.
Yes.
But you have chosen two of the least inquisitive, literally, professions in the world almost. I know law could be considered inquisitive, but it is very black and white with like a lot of what goes on, particularly in business.
I feel like
do lawyers ever give a black and white answer?
They don't, but that's not because there isn't a black and white answer. That's because they're lawyers. But accounting and law are, super dry things. They're typically known to be the sort of people that are very process driven, and there's, we've got to do this and then we've got to do this. And so asking why, I can see there'll be a lot of accountants out there who'd be really frustrated with the why do we do this? We are not, but that's just the way we are. Because they're your two vocational passions, what do you do outside of when you're at work for like 8 hours of the day? What does Richard do outside of that to stop from being so dry and
you're saying boring, Richard's dry as well?
No, I'm like accountants, lawyers.
Cop that, Richard.
Kind of a little. I'm not saying Richard is like that, but you've chosen an area.
And thanks very much as well. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I know what Shane does. I can tell you what he does to get out of the zone, and it's watch videos of people pressure washing and driving trains.
Fair enough.
So, and that is well renowned for the fact that he watches those sorts of things. What do you do? I kind of know a little bit what you do, but I'm asking it so everyone else gets to
absolutely. Know. It's content. Firstly, I suppose I would rebut your characterization of accounting.
I'm glad that you will.
Because I think from the outside it looks that way, but the number of people who are like, oh, you must be good at math. And I'm like, I'm terrible at math. Yeah. It's not math. We don't do math. No, we do characterization. We do, we account, we don't count. Yeah. Is something I've said to many people. And law is the same. It's about how do you look at something and say, well, no, that's not this, it's this. Yeah. Because characterization is the job. Yeah. You're saying, no, ATO, that's not this, that's this, and this has a tax deduction, or this income is treated differently, etc.
The best accountants and lawyers are very creative. I work in this industry.
The scope of the law.
I've been forced. Well, of course.
Yes.
But I was forced into this professional services environment. It is not where I came from. It is not what I studied. Forced by the being in the place at the time. I'm not going to say the right place at the right time either, but so I know how creative and interesting these professions are. I'm really being very cheeky when I say it's boring.
It's problem solving. A lot of it. Yeah.
It is.
That's
all of what we do. But there are accountants and lawyers out there who are not problem solvers. They are just very here's what has to happen and tick, 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 tick. That's not us.
The mechanics of accounting and law are dry in that they are about setting a standard of behavior. And I think probably the reason I gravitate towards those two in particular is I value heavily predictability. While I have a flair for the dramatic, I definitely am in my life, I like to be able to predict what's happening. So to answer your original question.
So what do you do outside of work?
I grew up in the 90s, so video games are a big part of my life. I am a collector of Warhammer, which has gained a remarkable amount of notoriety in the last like 5 years with COVID, especially.
Yeah.
Basically, you for those who don't know, you collect miniatures, you put them together with super glue, and you paint them, and then you play games with them. So when I was about 10, we were in Sydney. We got off the Sydney monorail, which used to exist. I don't think it does
No,
anymore.
it does not.
Unfortunate, because it was a great time. And we got off one of the stations, and there was this Games Workshop, and Dad went, and we went, and pulled him in. And that started a very, very expensive love of Warhammer that's now like 30 years old. And in COVID, if you look at the stock price of Games Workshop or Citadel Miniatures, which are the ones that own it, it went from like $1,000 to like $3,000 a share because so many people are at home with all this time, and they're like, guess I'll get into Warhammer. And so it's gained this like notoriety that I like. Previously it was like, oh, you don't even talk about it. It was just like, oh, it's a thing you do. Which I mean, it's great when the thing that you like becomes popular, I guess. I'm a fan of. I live out in at the moment I'm in Sassafras, which is fun to say, and a gorgeous part of the world. So I like hiking around, and it's. I'm sure I do other things, but right now I'm enjoying it.
What are your favorite video games?
I'm a WoW player from forever ago. I think it's coming on its 15th year.
World of Warcraft.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, you gotta,
acronyms.
well, you know we can't use
for those
those here.
unacquainted.
You've gotta, there'll be people who don't know what WoW is.
Absolutely. And so much the better for them. Because I've been playing that for 15 years, and it's again, predictability. I like I definitely like a steadied idea of what you do.
Any others, or is that just
many others?
What
there's a map painting game called Europa Universalis, which is about like you control a country in the 1400s, and it's very. I like trains. Absolutely, I heard somebody talk about the idea of like there are two kinds of games. There's jumping games, and then there's spreadsheet games. World of Warcraft is a jumping game. It's about movement. It's about fighting things, and the other sort of game is the kind where you make the number go up. And I like both of those. Yeah.
That's cool. I'm not a gamer either.
That's
can't.
Fair.
My hand-eye coordination is really bad. So when it comes to working out what things, but I do love a bit of Animal Crossing.
Absolutely.
That's one of my favorites. Well, it's actually the only game that I play on a gaming device. It's for the same reason too, because it's predictable and you know what you've got to do. You open it up and you say, okay, today I've got to do all the weeding, and then I've got to shake the trees, and it's all very predictable. It is a good way to depressurize the, sort of sit and decompress after a day.
The thing I find interesting with these games is that they never end.
Yes.
And I'm of the opinion that a game has to end at some point.
Okay. You want a book.
I do.
You want your game to be a book.
I do.
Yeah, that's fair. And like a linear story makes sense. I often find that I get to the end of that, and like a book, you get to the end and you pine for the characters and the world. Like I read a lot of books through Audible. Sorry, read.
I say that it's reading.
Traditionalists can call it whatever they want, but
there are people who complain about that.
I'm currently 26 chapters through War and Peace, and I would never have gotten through it if I had to spend the 50 hours or so reading the book, but it's very interesting so far. And it's about like 18th century Russian aristocrats. And I was like, it's one of the things that's been on my list of things. Eventually I'll get to Tolstoy, but and now I'm like, okay, there's a lot. And it's like, I remember when I was a kid, Dad would read to me Lord of the Rings in bed, like when we were, 8 or 9. And J.R. Tolkien, almost said the person from Song of Ice and Fire, but Lord of the Rings is written with so much detail. It's like every tile on the floor is described. And as an 8-year-old, you're like, but the battles though. But now, and then War and Peace is very similar in that it describes a lot of what's happening. But now, as an older person, I'm like, oh, I understand why, especially a book that was written in the 1900s, you want to build the world. Like it's such a big part of it.
People don't know what you're talking about otherwise.
Exactly.
I find with those sorts of books, they're not the sorts of books that I can read either because I skip through because I just get really frustrated with the descriptive.
Count Vasili's
Can go past that, which is really you can't do when you're reading an audiobook.
Yes.
Because you can't. Well, you can make it go 2.5 times, which I do sometimes, depending on the book. But is there when you're listening to an audiobook, I had this conversation with another team member the other day. My preference is to choose a book that is narrated by the author.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have the same thing? Obviously, you can't do that with Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, but
if only we had the technology. No, absolutely. So there's a series of there's 2 books by Kevin Rudd about China, about specifically Xi Jinping. He's a China watcher. He he speaks Chinese or Mandarin, and he's in many capacities dealt with the Chinese government, and it's just very interesting hearing him talk about his own ideas. And then he even speaks Chinese in it, and then I think the 3rd book, it's somebody else reading it, and it took me out of it completely. And I was like, I want to hear what he thinks.
Yeah. No, exactly. And you still are hearing what he thinks, but there's a part of your brain that says, okay, I get it that this is him writing, but it isn't him talking to me, and it's frustrating.
That said, there's speaking of Warhammer again, these things invade my life and never leave. There's a 50-book series called The Horus Heresy, and in it there's like probably 10 narrators and about the same number of authors. But there are certain books written by this person and read by this other person, and they're the voice of that series to me. And whenever anyone else is on, it's like, okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't engage in the same way.
Yeah.
And I think, audiobooks, like the narrator makes a huge difference.
It does. It really does. I have read a couple where they put me to sleep. And then I have to wake up and understand and think, okay, now I've got to go back 2 chapters.
I'll set a timer. I tend not to listen to a story while I'm sleeping because either I'll be too engaged or I'll completely miss what's happening and be like, okay, now I've got to scroll back and work out where I was.
Depends on who's reading it to me, of course. It's like the Calm app and stuff when it's like Matthew McConaughey and it's a soothing voice, and then all of a sudden it's like,
So is that an activity on the way home then from work?
Yeah. So while I'm driving, so it takes me about an hour to get to and from work, and so that time is always some kind of audiobook. There's also if you pay for the Audible subscription, you get access to the Great Courses, which is a number of like university lectures basically taught by like this person's from Harvard and this person's from Oxford, and they're talking about their area of expertise. So like there's a 50-hour one on Egypt because Egypt spans 4,000 years. Talking about the rise of dynasties up and down and like the Dark Ages and things. And so a long time I was like just diving into anything historical is history and politics are like the things, because I like the why things happen of it all. Like you go, these people invaded this area and that's why you get like the Magyars in Europe are like spread between like 4 different areas, and completely like when in Romania has a Latin language where nobody beyond that does because of the movement of tribes and things. Like that sort of things. It's the why again. Coming back to the theme, it's always the why, not the what, that I find really interesting.
So do you, is this useful information that can be applied elsewhere, or is it just a release?
I mean, I think that knowledge is a great end in and of itself, but you get to talk about these things in podcasts with your bosses.
That's true.
That's great.
That's true.
But I don't know. I find I tend to surround myself with people who are interested. Because they're oftentimes the interesting people. And so I try to be interested. And if people are interested, I'm happy to share what I know, but I know it's not the topic that, tell me about Rome. Like, how many times do you think about aqueducts?
Like, I don't. But
actually, we do, and that's such a silly thing because trains and aqueducts go really well together.
Turns out logistics can be very interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those funny things, and people there are we're obviously part of a paddling community because of Emily and our associations with the various paddlers that we sponsor here, but you can paddle along the top of aqueducts in Europe.
Yeah, there's in
so
Wales.
we do think about those. Yeah.
In Wales, they've got like a large channel that is suspended up, and you can take boats, like the long boats, along it.
It's actually awesome. So that's silly.
Turns out the world's full of really interesting stuff.
Who would ever have thought that we would be having a conversation about aqueducts that would then go to paddling? It is super interesting. Do you find, so Richard, I know that you're thinking about moving closer to the office, and actually not just closer to the office, but closer to, suburbia, I guess, or civilization. Sassafras is a beautiful part of the world, but it is a long way. It's like 40, 50 minutes, like at a good time. You come at, peak hour, so. Yeah. What is the motivation if you're going to lose that time? How are you going to get the time back? Because you're not going to have the 2 hours of commute to the office.
Maybe I'll start
What are you going to do?
No,
but I mean, how are you going to listen to the books? You're never going to get through War and Peace if you don't have that 2 hours a day.
You're trying to construct a positive of travelling in the car for an hour each way. I think
there's a reason why I don't listen to more audiobooks, and it's because I do not travel.
Well, I think a big thing is you fill your time. Like your activities expand to fill whatever your time is. And like if you're closer to work, maybe you work more, or maybe you it's easy because I have to do something with the time, and I'm driving, and I'm not going to read a book.
No.
So yes, that will absolutely change. I probably will sleep in, unfortunately.
That will be a good part.
I love the idea of getting up, because I mean this is the thing about commuting is you go an hour each way every day. That's 10 hours a week. Yeah. That becomes real time pretty fast. Yeah. So, it's for that reason I'd like to be closer. But it's not just when I travel. Audiobooks are a big part of a lot of my time. Yeah. But also, you go for a walk, you listen to something. I'm painting, you're listening to something. Because this, you're not mentally engaged while you're painting necessarily as much. Yeah. I mean, some people absolutely would be, but yeah, interesting.
I'm listening to an audiobook at the moment which is not narrated by the author but is still really interesting. It's called The Palace Letters. Okay. And it's a Jenny Hocking book about the dismissal. But it's actually not talking about the dismissal, it's talking about the story around it. And the correspondence between the then Governor General of Australia and the palace in the UK. Yeah. So it's really interesting. I have always been interested in that sort of stuff, and I've had the book on my coffee table for a long time. I just haven't ever read it. So I downloaded it and started listening. And I was boring Shane with that at a conversation the other day because it's so interesting. And you're absolutely right about just the knowledge of those things. People don't necessarily want to sit down and have a chat about what John Kerr was talking to the palace about at that time. But the stuff that is in that and the way it changed Australian politics is actually really, really interesting. And for all of us, I think it would be something that people, we should be teaching in high school politics at least. We do teach about the dismissal because that's how I learnt about it 100 years ago. But this stuff is really interesting, and I think it's great. And Shane and I are full on about curiosity. Shane's not a book reader either. Sure. Listens to a lot of YouTube and things like that. Sometimes completely and utterly brain numbing stuff, but it's the way you find out about things, right? And you don't necessarily know what's going on in the tech world unless you're listening to somebody talk about it, and you might come up with a snippet of info that other people don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about YouTube is it's the decentralization of content. It's instead of being we used to have 9, 10, 7 ABC, SBS, and now we've got 100 million people going exactly. Hey, here's the thing I'm interested in and or have knowledge about. But and I think that's the thing. There's so much knowledge out there, and you used to only find out about it by engaging a person with a particular skill. Yeah. But now it's the Wikipedia thing where people are I want to show my mastery. I want to be hey, here's what I know. Because everyone builds up these your 10,000 hours in anything just by being. Like everyone has a skill, everyone has talent. They talk about like whether talent is like inbuilt or learnt, and it's like it's somewhat both, and it's partially because you went, I'm interested in the thing, I'm going to spend time learning how to do it well. I on the audiobooks that are interesting thing, the dismissal of dismissal of
Whitlam.
By Kerr. I was reading a book, I can't remember exactly, I think it might have been someone Friedman. Anyway, it's about how Australia went from being very much a British colony with a British culture and identity, and the White Australia policy, and at some point, and he pinpoints World War II, but it also changed with Whitlam coming in and bringing in a lot of change as well. We changed to this multicultural society that we are, and a part of it was, we saw the British couldn't defend us in World War II and went, well, maybe this isn't, maybe we pivot to America. And so it's interesting now that the pivot of like, are we still with America? Are we going to China? What's like, how are we gonna balance these competing interests? Because I think they're like 45% of the world's economy is those two countries. So like the Canadian Prime Minister can stand up and say like, we need to be middle powers, but like ultimately if you have both of those guys on offside, and currently the world is in a state
wild.
It's like predictability has gone out the window.
Yeah, hasn't it? There's a funny thing going on actually at the moment on social media, on the Threads and Blue Sky and that sort of stuff. Not so much. I'm not on X anymore, but where Canadians are holding the fort for their daylight hours and Australians are holding the fort for our daylight hours, and actually making comment about what is going on in that sort of middle section of, in that North American section where it's literally the Wild West and anything could happen in that day. And there's a thing where in the morning, the Australians will come on and say, okay, my Canadian friends, what's been going on in the after hours? And then the opposite. And I think it's funny because Australia and Canada, like we do mirror each other a little bit in the way things work, and obviously our former British empires. and it's an interesting thing that it sort of brought people back together in a bit of a Commonwealth way where we're looking out for each other the way we always have done.
I think specifically like Australia, New Zealand and Canada, we inherited the British way of thinking and then we didn't rebel against it. Whereas America, it was set up by...
very much rebel against it.
But also it was set up by people with money. And who went over and like, we're going to have plantations and that's how we're going to make money. Therefore, like, hey, free labor is pretty good. What if we have lots of free labor? What if we stop sending money across the, see the Tea Act and things like that? And so its political system has been built on a rejection of the Westminster system, and like we are, we're different, and specifically the people in charge have a lot of money and would like to safeguard those interests. So like you don't even get to vote for the president. You vote for a person that votes for the president, and that person is going to be someone of high stature, and probably wealth. So it's a very different rationale for creating a country to begin with. Like England was created to make sure that Henry VIII, the conqueror, stayed in power. It was a system of somebody at the top with vassals and vassals and vassals, with dukes and earls and counts and things, and that creates this structure. And we inherited that less the royalty being in the country. So we kept that hierarchical structure, but it was always like built on the like 1800s. Hey, a lot of kids are like not doing particularly well in factories. Maybe we should like have a little bit of like, we'll put some law around.
Maybe not put them in to work when they're 4.
And so like in America, you're like, they don't have a minimum wage. They don't have socialized medicine, and like socialized has become a dirty word. But like, the Cold War's over, people. And so people, you get sick and you just die. You're just like, oh, you die, and you don't die in a hospital. You die outside of the hospital because you can't afford to be.
Exactly. It's funny because that you mentioned that, because there's a reasonably high-profile young-ish person who is a movie TV star in America who has recently passed away from cancer, and his family have now had to set up a GoFundMe because his treatment has basically decimated their entire savings, and he was a popular, well respected actor who probably earned quite a lot of money while he was working, and it's bizarre. And there is a lot of social discourse at the moment around this shouldn't happen. Like someone should not be having to set up a GoFundMe because they've tried to save their dying relative, and that's like you said, Richard, it's one of those really interesting scenarios, a very dog eat dog sort of mentality, which I don't think we have in this country.
I think we're very lucky that I think it was World War II, the Commonwealth went, we're going to borrow this this income tax thing. We're going to put it over here. We're going to hold it. States used to have it. You don't have it anymore. And the states went, can we have that back? And they went, no. So the states in our country are really weak. And so like the Commonwealth has most of the power. And so the ideal, at least, is that the government works for everyone in Australia rather than the specific constituencies that they have. And in America, you've got that. You've got very powerful states, especially the big ones. You've got, and then you've also got a Senate and Congress that are about theoretically the people, but the senators are very much about the states, and the congressmen as well about their constituents. And so there's a lot of interest, and there's a lot more people. Like it's a state, it's 300 million people instead of we've got like 25 million or so,
27-ish,
relatively. And so like it's very hard to check special interest who just go like, here's money. Like the hospitals are like or no. We want to keep making massive profits off the sick and the dying, please. And the gun lobbies and the depending on what bent of a particular persuasion you are, that's a good or a bad thing. But like ultimately, there was a decision that corporations are people.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, I understand legally the rationale, but like the idea that that they have rights that are protected in the way that a human is bizarre.
Yes,
but
it is bizarre.
But capitalism, question mark.
We could talk about.
I know that's a whole other
forever.
podcast series on.
But just a side issue, and again, probably a little bit of a tangent. One of the things I've been watching,
we love a tangent.
Watching lately, which goes back to what you talked about Romania, is the origins of English, the language, and New English, which is what we are now, Middle English, and then Old English, and the Germanic heritage of that and everything. And I've been going down not a rabbit hole, but been watching a particular person on YouTube who has been enlightening me on that, and I think it's fascinating and how things evolve.
Well, because I mean, William the Conqueror was French.
Correct.
Like, he was a Frenchman who came over and went, "We're speaking French now," and then they spoke French for 500 years.
Yeah, they did.
And the commoners spoke their language.
Yeah.
That's why we have we've got different names for the meats. Like the animal and the meat are different. Like
correct.
Like all of those are French words because the aristocrats saw ate the food, and the commoners saw the animal. But correct. It's and that's why I mean the kings of England for like 500 years went, oh yeah, we're also the rightful kings of France. And like for a while they had some of it. But like turns out it's very hard to subjugate an area that big from a tiny island off their coast.
Who would have thought?
But just fascinating. But it's something like 29% or 30% of English is French based.
And then there'd also be
there's
Latin
Latin
as well.
a lot of
Vikings came over.
and Latin as well. But still, it's still inherently a Germanic language.
Well, that's the interesting thing about like the Vikings is the Vikings had this massive advantage over the island because it's very hard to defend everywhere from people that are anywhere. And then the Vikings did the silly thing, which was we're going to take the land and settle, and then suddenly you could fight them because they couldn't be everywhere. They now were like, oh, we're defending our stuff.
This is our city.
But it's like in England, it's like you have Nordic people, like Nordic descent people, and you've got the Celts and you've got the French, and it's such a melting pot of peoples.
Which is
Sorry,
why
you got
it
me
is
onto history.
No, that's okay. So
That's my trigger.
It's why the whole thing that is going on with the multicultural conversations that are happening right now is that actually there is no area where where someone can say, well, it's just us. And you've got to be us, otherwise you can't be here. Like that's the conversation. It's happening in the UK as well, where they're all saying, we've now become multicultural. Actually, no, that's been a long-standing
situation. The Raj was a big part of your history, friend.
Exactly.
But that's the thing is England specifically is like we went to we went to this country and this country and this country and sent and went, here's our flag.
Yeah.
We run it now.
Yeah.
But you're now part of the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
So I guess you can come in. And now people are like, oh, we've got so many people from all over the world. And I'm like, yeah, that was the regime.
The intention, yeah.
You conquered them and made them British members of your Commonwealth.
Exactly.
It's in the name. It's Commonwealth.
It is.
But
I think the funny thing too, Richard, is that we've got access, like you were saying, we've just got access to so much information now, and yet we're having conversations where people clearly are like not involving themselves in access to that information.
That's because people filter.
Yeah, of course they do.
And they only hear what they want to hear.
So much more info.
I think also, while I praise YouTube as the great decentralizer, also like social media in general decentralizes ideas.
Yeah.
And so anyone who believes one thing will find
Yeah.
that the algorithm gives them a whole bunch of people that also feel that same way. And they go, well, I'm justified in my opinion because all these people around me believe this, and then all these people around here believe this. And so, and I feel like we're going backwards a bit in how people are treated and respect and things like that, which is a shame.
It's becoming a bit more tribal, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's I'm part of this group of people and this is what we think. And
and I think I've got a weird inner period between we had change coming in and I feel like it's like the wave came in and now I'm seeing the wave wash out again and I'm like, oh man, it was so good for in my head at least, it might be a make Australia great again kind of idea where it's I have idealized how people treated each other. There's obviously still racism and misogyny and things in the 90s as well.
Yeah.
But it's very easy to harken back to when you were young and go people used to treat each other better. And I'm like, but maybe they didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We do always idealize what we grew up with.
It's just it's more public now. You've got platforms.
It's easier to hear people say things.
Where you can voice your opinions where you wouldn't have seen that in the 90s and so on.
The other thing is, speaking of trains, I remember we used to talk to people on trains, people you didn't know. You'd be like, hey, how's your day? What's happening? And then Steve Jobs went, here's an iPod.
Put these things in your ears.
I can ignore people. You used to ignore people with a newspaper. If you had a newspaper, people went, I won't
nobody's pulling your newspaper down to say, oh, good morning, how are you?
But you'd have conversations with not necessarily exactly like-minded people and gain an understanding of the world through that. And now everyone only... Because people are more selective about how they interact with people, you don't meet randoms as easily. Yeah. It's much harder to have a conversation with somebody who may disagree with you because there are algorithms specifically pushing you away from those people and towards other people. Which is a very, very weird change of dynamic.
It definitely is.
You got to roll with it.
Yeah. We could talk about this sort of stuff a lot, and we probably will, because we'll probably get back on the podcast at some point with you, Richard, and talk about something that is equally not relevant to accounting or tax or law, because it's been fun.
Topics.
Thank you so much for joining us in the studio this morning. You will get a chance, everyone, to hear Richard on the Plant Grow Reap podcast, because I'm just voluntolding him that he's going to be doing some of those episodes because it is a great word. I've always loved it. He's got some really great ideas to share, and I'm sure that there'll be a lot of benefit to having you on Plant Grow Reap, and we have really appreciated your time this morning. The team are going to love listening to this episode because they will hear probably not a side of Richard they've not known, because I know that this is what Richard is like, but it's good to get a bit more of a handle about where Richard's coming from in the day, and I really have appreciated chatting with you.
I had one of my cousins is very into numerology and astrology and things that I don't know much about. And they said they did my palm reading and they went, look, you have a lot of opinions, but wait for them to be asked for and you will do better.
Yeah, okay.
And that's what I'm trying to do.
Good advice, hey? Yeah. I think that's good advice in general.
I think it's good advice for everyone,
I don't think that's a Richard-specific thing.
No.
I think that's just a generally good piece of advice. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in today. We'll be back again in 2 weeks with something that is not as interesting as Richard, I'm sure, but will still be interesting. Chat again soon.